Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This would be number 96 in the year of the pandemic since we've been doing them at home. Sometimes it's called Heartland at Home, but we are anxious to get back into the WLUW studios. And speaking of WLUW, 88.7, WLUW.org, that's where this show originates from. We also go out on YouTube, on Spotify, on Google. You can get us a lot of ways, including listening to us live, well, not quite live, on Saturday mornings. We actually record this a little early. Today is Friday. And here in Chicago, it's pretty cold. It's like, like a little over 30, supposedly going up to 39, a little bit of rain. And I did get invited by my daughter-in-law, and my granddaughter to go to a Cubs game. So I'm dressed to be warm. When I finish the show, I'm headed to the wonderful L and riding down to Addison and getting off, meeting up with them, and I'll take in a game. But I am still a loyal Sox fan, and they play later today. That would be Friday, and we'll see how they do. The Cubs did win yesterday. That's part of our sports report. So we want to thank Kev Mo for bringing us in with a little bit of music about standing up and be strong. We try to do that here in Chicago, and we've got some wonderful guests coming on the show today. We're going to have our old pal Mike Klonsky. He's a longtime activist. A lot of people who listen to this show have heard him here and certainly know about him from other places. We're going to talk all things politics with Mike, see what he's got to share. And then we're going to bring on Jen Walling, and she is the executive director at the Illinois Environmental Council. So we'll talk a little bit about environment here in Illinois and beyond. And then for all of you Wilco fans and Jay Bennett fans, we've got two filmmakers, Gorman Bechard, I'm not sure if he pronounces it that way, it's Bechard, and also Fred Uter, Uchter, and they are two filmmakers who made a film about Jay Bennett, and it's called Where Are You, Jay Bennett, I believe. I got to get that name correct. And we're going to hear about that musician who is sadly, is gone long before he should have gone. So that's the lineup for the show today. Full lineup, so we're going to have only a bit of short banter, and the banter will be with me, myself, and I. On a real serious note, if you have paid any attention to the news today, it's really another example of just a horrific situation in the Ukraine. 50 people were killed in a train station in eastern Ukraine where they had taken refuge. And this is just, the onslaught of mistreatment of people and war crimes, even genocide is unbelievable. I'm sure many of you are watching the news and are really concerned about it. Let me see. Regarding environment, we're going to hold off on the environment until we talk to Jen Wallen, our second guest today. On the COVID front, a number of people, are getting pretty lax around it. I'm still got my mask, one of many, and I'm going to keep wearing it. And an old friend of mine, a guy named Mark Scott Smith, and he is now an author, but he was a longtime doctor and taught at University of Washington. He keeps sending me warnings about the spread of COVID and new things coming. And I take that as serious information. So I do encourage people to not think this is all done and we can just go around and relax among our friends because we think they're all tested. We've still got a long way to go. Over in Shanghai, the Chinese are dealing with a city that they've closed down completely. And think about millions and millions of people not being able to go out, but taking those steps in order to try and, keep other people from getting it and end the pandemic. On the labor front, those of you who are watching the news, listening to the news, know that Amazon won a real big victory in Staten Island in New York. There are other Amazon organizing efforts going on, other votes being taken. And on the Starbucks front, as close to me as Edgewater, which is the neighborhood and the ward to the south of Rogers Park, the Starbucks workers have organized, and that's happening in a lot of places. And next week, a little heads up, our good friend Bob Lawson, a longtime labor organizer, is going to fill us in on what's going on in the labor movement here and beyond, everywhere. Let me see, what else do I have? I just lost the screen. I got to go up and I got to go over. There we go. On the political front, there's a lot of talk, certainly the Republicans talk like they're going to take back the House and the Senate. I don't think people should succumb to this information that keeps being poured out and told us over and over how the Republicans are going to take over. The Republicans still are pretty slimy. And I say that again, they're pretty slimy. Many times we hear about, well, we just witnessed them trying to really intimidate the new Supreme Court justice when they were interviewing her in the sessions for ratification. And it's really depressing, sad, and a little bit disgusting to see the way they behave. And really the future remains in our hands. So if you're a conscious human being, you care about the future of the country, the future of the world, it's really important that you talk to people everywhere that you know about the upcoming 2022 elections. Okay, that said, I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to let you know that you are listening to the Live from the Heartland show. We're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to hear Phil Oakes' Ringing of Revolution. And then we'll be back with our first guest, our longtime pal, Michael Klonsky. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial for more Live from the Heartland.
In a building of gold with riches untold lived the families in which the country was founded, and the merchants of style with their vain velvet smiles were there, for they also were hounded. And the soft middle class crowded into the last, for the building was fully surrounded. And the noise outside was the ringing of revolution. Sadly they stared and sank in their chairs and searched for comforting notion. And the rich silver walls looked ready to fall as they shook in doubtful devotion. The ice cubes would clink as they freshened their drinks, wet their minds in bitter emotion. And they talked about the ringing of revolution.
Hey, we're back with more Live from the Heartland, and we want to thank Phil Oakes for bringing in of Revolution. That song I hadn't heard in a long time. Came up on my computer the other day. I said, I'm going to use that to introduce our next guest. Our next guest, the activist, the analyst, the reporter, the old jock, my fellow traveling companion to the old Soviet Union and the Ukraine, Mike Klonsky. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning, Michael. Pleasure to see you.
Yeah,
I've missed you. I've missed you. We haven't been able to get together very much during this pandemic.
I know a couple of times we ran into each other, but I follow you on, on Facebook and Instagram and emails, and you've got a big family, all of them doing good in the world. So I keep a little bit abreast of you.
And have you been following my new EduPoll newsletter?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I do read it. I at least skim it when it comes out. And for the listeners who may not know, you used to do a show called Hitting Left with the Klonsky Brothers, and it was on Lumpen Radio, a sister station, so to speak, down there in Bridgeport. And I got to be on that show, and it was real good. But you stopped doing that, and then all of a sudden, I noticed you're putting out this new newsletter. Tell us about it. Tell us how you're getting it out to the world and how it's being received.
Well, I've been blogging for years and years. I had a platform over at Blogger, but then when Substack came along, I decided to switch over. Substack to me was more of a writer's platform, And with a click of a button, I was able to bring all my old posts over to Substack. So that was good. I didn't lose anything. And I just find it more appealing in terms of writing. It simplifies the task, and it just and plus a lot of other good people I know were writing on Substack. So I came over there for a while, and I've been over there for about 7 months.
What do you write about? Tell people about the content.
Well, the main things I focus number one, I write a lot about the global situation, about the war in Ukraine, about imperialism, and which is something I've been writing about for years and years. And also I do some focus on Chicago and on Chicago politics. And then the third area is education. I'm a longtime educator and education activist. So I write a lot about what's going on in the schools, especially during this pandemic. And I tweet. I have a tweet platform called Education Schooling in Hard Times, and so people can follow me on that too. So I'm into a lot of different things, and it keeps me busy during my retirement years here.
Well, I imagine you still get on a basketball court once in a while, but thinking about education and about global politics and city politics will certainly keep you busy. So we're going to ask you about all three of those things. And if someone wants to find your new blog on Substack, it's called, tell us what it's called.
Michael Klonsky at Substack.com.
Okay, I'm going to put that into my phone.
Pretty simple. Yeah, We'll never forget that hit, Mike. We'll never forget that.
Well, tell us what you remember about that trip.
Well, I remember that we were there. It's not the Ukraine anymore. It's Ukraine, a separate country. And, since the breakup of the Soviet Union, which was taking place, our timing was really interesting. We were there just when the old Soviet Union was breaking up, and there was a lot of turmoil, and it was, unbeknownst to us, it was actually a overthrow of the regime taking place. And when we were there, the economy was down in the dumps. And I remember one thing that stands out in my mind, we brought over a lot of equipment from major league teams, to donate to the Russian athletes. Baseball had just become an Olympic sport that year in 1990. Right. And the Russians didn't really have a clue about American style baseball. They had some inkling of it. And so the universities were having teams, and people were being picked to play on the Russian Olympic team. And so we got to travel around, and we stayed in people's houses, and I learned a lot about what was going on, even though I didn't speak hardly a word of Russian. And when you and I weren't rooming, I was staying at, with families there, and I had a wonderful time. And I remember long lines, if there were some vegetables or fruits that came in from the market, the lines were around the block. And people only wanted to deal with dollars then. And so, for example, if you wanted to catch a cab anywhere, no cab would stop for you unless you had dollars. Or what I did, I bought a carton of Marlboros in the dollar store, and I just waved a pack of Marlboros. And there had been a tobacco strike for 4 months, and people were going crazy with no cigs.
Yeah, there
So
was long lines, I remember, in front of a Marlboro store.
yeah, so you and I had a great time together, and we got to see Moscow and St. Petersburg, and then Ukraine.
And so,
Went down to the Black Sea, Sochi, Donetsk, the scenes of where all the fighting is right now. Yeah.
yeah, I remember they wouldn't let us go to Georgia, which was having a rebellion. And I tell you, a couple of things that, left an impression was just how kind of gray and dreary it was in a lot of ways. Not that there weren't some laughing and joy and really wonderful things, but I remember I didn't see any handicapped people or physically challenged people. I saw one guy in that big gum department store on crutches, and I saw another woman on a little cart, but they didn't have curb cuts. We had all that kind of thing. They had, when we went to this fancy hotel in Sochi, coming off the beach at the Black Sea, the bathroom was just a hole in the floor. I mean, it was a stark change. And
Hard times, yeah.
Yeah, it was already, and this was 89.
Now,
or 80.
I don't know if you remember, Mike. A group of us drove up to a place where the miners were on strike outside of Donetsk.
We had a race, and you ran barefoot.
Yeah,
but like the other miners.
Miners had been on strike for 6 months, and I did an interview with the leaders of the miners' strike. The miners were about to be attacked by the Soviet army, by the Red Army, and it was very confusing for a lot of us. Why would the army be of this supposed socialist country being attacking striking miners? So I did an interview with them, and I just recovered it after years and years, and I posted it on my new newsletter. So one of the things you can see on my newsletter is this interview I did with the striking miners in Donetsk.
Well, Mike, we've got only a few minutes and a lot to talk about. So tell us your take on the current situation in the Ukraine.
Well, I think it's very complicated. For one thing, it's not just a border dispute, between Russia and Ukraine. The Russians have been worried for a long time about encroaching NATO, expansion of NATO in Europe and right up to their doorstep. And I think Putin made a horrible choice in response to that and launched an invasion, a really brutal invasion of Ukraine, and horrible things are taking place there now. The leveling of cities, the bombing of civilian populations, and war crimes and things like that. Although I must say I'm skeptical about some of the latest reports coming out of Ukraine, which I think where I think some of these reports of war crimes are being either exaggerated or made up in order to escalate the situation. I think the U.S. is, instead of trying to facilitate peace talks, their interest is in expanding and prolonging the war, and they're pumping billions of dollars worth of missiles and weapons of mass destruction into the country. And I think there's going to be no winners in this war. And I think the issues are pretty clear. They have to do with autonomy for Ukraine and an end to NATO expansion. And the main thing is to get to the negotiating table, to the peace table. And until that happens, it's nothing going to be more horrors and misreporting in the mainstream media, and what we used to call the fog of war in Vietnam. And so you and I have had a lot of experience with that. And I'm trying to be as skeptical as possible and looking for facts and trying to sort out what's really going on so people can follow me on here, and we'll try to keep up on the situation.
Yeah, we'll keep watching it because, I got to say that I follow all the questioning that goes on from various camps and sides and things. But the Russian invasion is so horrendous that that's the main thing I'm concerned about is how do we stop it? And we'll talk
Well,
more about that.
yeah.
Let's jump over to the city of Chicago and a little bit of politics. You got any thoughts on the mayoral race, on the mayoral's how she's doing? And we've got a Ray Lopez from the 15th Ward has jumped in. There's a couple of cops. I got to turn this off. Stop. And a couple of cops, John Catanzara, who's a really kind of right-wing president of Lodge 7, the Fraternal Order of Police, another officer named Collins.
Well, Catanzara is an outright fascist buddy of Trump. You got Paul Vallis, who's also works for the FOP, and
Wow.
And now you got Lopez. And all three of them are like law and order, who've picked up on the crime issue and see it as the wedge issue that they can make some gains. I'm doubtful about the possibility of success for all three of those. I think they're really running against each other for now. And Lopez, I doubt very much. I think he's kind of a stalking horse for our old friend Eddie Burke. Eddie Burke, who's indicted now, was one who goes back with us to the Harold Washington days, and who's now is awaiting trial on a lot of charges. And Lopez is a kind of takes his lead from Burke. We call him Little Burke.
Yeah.
So we're still waiting to see, who's going to jump into this race, and I can't say that much about it. I think people think that our current mayor, Lori Lightfoot, is going to, is doing so badly that she's going to drop out. I doubt it. I think her base of support is a lot larger than people estimate. And I think, considering the conditions that she came in as a first-time mayor with the pandemic and the economic crisis, I think it's amazing that the city is up and running again, and she gets some of the credit for that. So we'll see how things roll out. I'm not one to make predictions or anything like that, but so far her opposition is pretty slimy.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let me ask you, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Chicago public schools, charter schools, and anything good happening there. I noticed there was a report out about a consent decree and integration, and it looks like in some of these magnet schools and new schools, they're more segregated than they need to be. Any thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, it's the same old. On the one hand, you have all the new issues about stemming from the pandemic and how to open schools and open them safely. And schools are open now and seem to be operating, and that's a bare minimum for me right now, is that how to get schools open, how to get kids in the schools and teachers, and how to make things as safe as possible in these times. But these old issues about privatization that are left over from the old regime, from the Rahm Emanuel days, are still with us. And so there's still, because of the push for distance learning, for example, there's a lot of private companies that are jumping in to the situation because they're the ones who have the wherewithal to do distance learning and remote learning. There's still a fight around charter schools, although the current board has been pretty good on that, not expanding charter schools. And so I'm happy about that. There's also the biggest issue is about funding. And right now, the situation is better than it's been. There's been an influx of funds from the state and feds, largely because of the pandemic. And how that's going to be used is a issue of big concern. Anyway, the issues have pretty much stayed the same. Testing, privatization, charter schools, they're all carries over. and they're going to be carried out for a long time. The other interesting issue is that the Chicago Teachers Union is facing a lot of internal struggle now, and with election coming up, and so there's at least 3 factions that I know of that are fighting it out for leadership in the Chicago Teachers Union. So we'll be taking a close look at that as well.
What are the 3 factions, real quickly?
You know, I'm not that familiar with them. Okay. I know the concern of some of them is that, and I'm certainly not going to get involved in that internal dispute, but I know one of the issues is whether or not the union current union leadership is focusing enough on teacher issues, you know, basic teachers issues, pay, working conditions, and things like that, or are they trying to basically fight Mayor Lightfoot on every issue? And some of the teachers think that the last work stoppage was in vain, that nothing came of it, and that they were led on a walkout for no good reason and didn't get much out of it. So there's kind of a revolt. I don't know how big it is, you know, because I'm not that intimately involved in it anymore. But I'm trying to follow it, and I'll be just taking notes on it for now.
Well, comrade, brother, we'll have you back because you're always someone we like to go to get information. I appreciate you coming on live from the Heartland. I'll stop by your house soon because
You're welcome.
I'm driving around, and so we're going to take a quick little break, and we'll be back with Jen Walling, the executive director of the Illinois Environmental Council, and we want to do a big thank you to Michael Klonsky. And thanks for reminding me about all those good times we had in the old Soviet Union and the Ukraine back in the day.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. See you.
Right on, brother. We'll be right back. Stay tuned here on the left end of your dial or wherever you're getting the show. Hey, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of April 9th in the year 2022. I'm your host, Michael James, and I'm really honored to bring in a neighbor, an activist, someone who's working hard down in Springfield, the one, the only Jen Walling, who is the executive director of the Illinois Environmental Council. Good morning to you, Jen.
Thanks so much for having me on again. I always appreciate it.
Great. Well, I was asking how things were down in Springfield, and you said not so hot. And one of the things was not only is it kind of cold down there too and rainy, but we had a bill that we probably were all in favor of failed last night on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. I am tired and cranky this morning, but that means I might give you some good stories of what happened this week. You know, our organization, the Illinois Environmental Council, is a coalition organization of different environmental groups. And so we mainly focus on lobbying City of Chicago, State of Illinois, and our Illinois federal officials. And this week is really important for the state of Illinois. And today is theoretically the last day of legislative session. So last night we called to the floor a bill about coal ash removal at a coal plant in Waukegan. And coal ash is an extremely toxic substance, lots of heavy metals, lots of carcinogens, very bad for groundwater. For our Lake Michigan, it's about 800 feet from the lake. And the community that it's in already has 5 Superfund sites. It's mostly Latino, working class community, environmental justice community, absolutely. And we have been working on this bill all year, and we kind of knew we didn't have enough votes, but we were surprised by some of the people who were not committing to us. So called this to the floor last night. We only had 52 votes. We need 60, and just shocked at the number of lawmakers that are not willing to protect this environmental justice community and are not willing to protect Lake Michigan.
Why do you think it is that these people, and you're talking about Democrats who should be voting for a better world, so to speak. What's your take on why they failed?
I mean, this is a story about the influence of the coal industry. The coal industry in Illinois still is one that is very powerful, has a lot of money, hires the right lobbyists that have connections and influence over lawmakers, gives political contributions to a lot of lawmakers that help with their campaign. And they're exerting all sorts of those and the constituents, the people who live in various districts, are not being listened to. And that's really frustrating, that the power is coming from this coal company, but it's not an unusual story. And we've beat them before, we will beat them again. But last night, those dirty politics and corruption definitely triumphed.
There's a couple other bills that I saw in looking up some information about you coming on. And tell me if I'm correct. One is the Illinois Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, and the other is the Illinois Environmental Justice Bill. Tell us a little bit about each of those and the prospects for passing those bills in the next session.
Well, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act passed last year, and we're working to implement it, and we're working to make sure this year that there aren't any rollbacks, because there have been lots of efforts to roll it back. But just as we especially go into celebrating Earth Month and Earth Day, April 22nd, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act is so exciting. And it especially is exciting, normally we pass bills and we say this was the first step, we have so much more work to do. The Climate and Equitable Jobs Act was a victory of its own. It's 100% renewable energy by 2050, a carbon-free power sector by 2045. So that means closing all the coal and natural gas plants. There will be a plan in Illinois, close all of our fossil fuel generators in the power sector, and create more renewable energy, more energy efficiency, but also exciting, really focused on equity. So making sure that those people who have been left out of the energy economy can enter into it. Those people with employment barriers, we have focuses on former foster children. We have focuses on those returning citizens from prison. So we have a lot of focuses on equity and workforce development, investment in diverse contractors. So it is a really exciting bill. Definitely the boldest in the nation in equity, and one of the boldest in the nation in terms of our climate goals for the power sector. And that passed last September. We're working on implementing it. That was really awesome and showed the power that people can have in Springfield if we organize enough. So that one was very exciting and passed last year, September 15th. And this year, we're just working on making sure there are no rollbacks. And so far, so good. But there were some attempts last night, and we did win that this week.
So how does this line up? This is the one called Illinois Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does it line up with the bill that failed last night?
Yeah, well, so the way that those line up, we're going to close all these coal plants, right? And all of them have dirty, nasty things that are on the site. And we have a statewide effort to address coal ash at all these different sites. But this site in particular, the Waukegan coal plant is scheduled to close next year, or at least the coal portion. There may still be natural gas running until 2030. And with that in mind, it's got 4 different coal ash pits that are 800 feet from Lake Michigan. And how we deal with that and close those coal plants is going to be really important. So this is really critical to protect that community.
Okay, Gesundheit. Tell us a little bit about this Illinois Environmental Justice Bill.
Sorry.
You okay?
Yes. I was having a dry voice this morning from last night being a late night. So another important portion, and this isn't necessarily related to climate, although it can be, is working on environmental justice communities. So environmental in Illinois and all over the country, we as a society tend to place our biggest polluters in communities that can least handle it, and especially not just low-income, disproportionately burdened communities. We tend to put those polluters in Black and brown communities of any income. And so we have environmental justice communities all over the state, and we just keep putting more and more pollution in there. And I think we saw a lot of that in what was happening with General Iron. We're a polluter with lots of violations, lots of complaints that couldn't make it in a white, wealthy community of Lincoln Park, wanted to move to a more diverse Black and brown community that's more working class, that has a ton of pollution already. And so they wanted to move that facility. And luckily, so far, we've been able to stave off that permit, but it took the residents literally sacrificing their bodies through a hunger strike. It took national news. It took the US EPA to come in and say this wasn't right. And so how do we make sure we are actually, when we cite a large polluter, we shouldn't be looking at it on a case by case basis. And often we do. And so how do we make sure when we're putting a polluter somewhere, we're looking at what else is out there? What is the cumulative impact? This one permit might be safe, but 6 permits is not safe for that community and really contributes to the asthma problems in different Black and brown communities throughout the city of Chicago. So we have been working with Chicago Environmental Justice Network, which is 6 different environmental justice community-based organizations that are leading the way. And they have put together this proposal that would address some of the issues that most burden their communities. So it defines environmental justice communities and those communities that are burdened by socioeconomic factors, that are burdened by pollution, defines them. And then in those communities, you need to do a public hearing, you need to do transparency in a process, and then you need to look at the cumulative impact of all the pollution that's in there before you can give a new permit to that area. And so, and then there's other portions that are really important on compliance history that would address things like general iron, but incredibly important bill. We got it through the Illinois House, just squeaked it through 64 votes. Unfortunately, the Senate has declined to call it. We have, I think, 21 co-sponsors as of today, and I know we have the votes to call it, but the Senate has declined to prioritize it and the issues that they'd like to address right now. So we're going to have to spend the summer just explaining to them that this is a priority that they need to call, with the hope to call it in veto session. The sooner the better is important, because there are definitely places that are looking at citing these big polluters in their communities. So the sooner the better is what our goal is, but November, December veto session. But we did get it out of one chamber. We have a lot of support in the Senate, and are really looking forward with Senator Villanueva, who is the sponsor in the Senate, of getting it done. It's a really, really important bill, and led by the community.
Well, we're rooting for you, and I'm sure we'll know about it when it happens. One of the things that I think it just popped in my mind was, we talked about the Illinois Environmental Council when you, I think, saved the prairie up there near the Rockford Airport. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, we may have, but definitely some of our groups, the Belleville Prairie in Rockford.
Yeah.
But that Belleville Prairie, we're still working on it. There's still a possibility they could bulldoze it after June 1st. That's the new court date. We have a lot of information up on our website and a new video from some of the experts involved with it. So that bill, that is still a huge concern, this ancient prairie that's just going to be bulldozed by this airport. So lots of work still to do there, trying to see if we can get the governor to weigh in, trying to see if we can get any decision makers to weigh in with this just villain of airport authority that's going to bulldoze this ancient prairie.
And how crucial is that to the airport's development? Because I know they're touting the Rockford Airport as a new growing thing with lots of trade and planes coming in with stuff. What do we do about this? Do we call the governor? Maybe I invite him on the radio show to ask him directly.
Yeah, I mean, this is not crucial to the airport's development. The airport could have both. You could both do the expansion and just leave this prairie alone. And they've just chosen not to do it. I mean, definitely, the governor, there's the guy at the Rockford Airport Authority not returning calls, not being responsive. He is just ready to bullshit. Imagine being the person that just decided, I'm going to be responsible for just destroying this thousands and thousands of year old piece of property. That is taken a lot of awfulness. That guy is the villain in this story.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad people who are listening can pay attention to it, and maybe they got to contact some people. In our time left, because I got a lot of guests this morning, how about we've heard a lot about how climate change is really even more challenging than we imagined, and that we're running out of time. I think they're talking about 6 years to make serious moves, or we're really in deep, what. So how about sharing a little bit of information on the overall climate change issue and the overall environmental movement?
Yeah, well, the scientists from the International Panel on Climate Change say that we have until the end of the decade, so 2030, to make really substantial changes before we see permanent and catastrophic events. And we are already seeing catastrophes happen. We're already seeing life lost through the impacts of climate change. I think in looking at polling, people are even more worried about climate change after the pandemic when they see how badly we responded to what is more of a short-term crisis compared to climate change. Like, how are we going to deal with this serious long-term crisis that can hit different areas inequitably? So I think there is a lot of concern. I mean, I'm concerned that we're not going to do enough in the next 8 years to be able to make a substantial difference. But I have to have hope that we can try and we can do what we can to get there. So that is what I'm focused on. I'm really excited about all the youth organizing that's going on, the different youth climate strikes. I know they're planning one for, I think it's 2:30 on April 22nd at Dearborn Plaza. So that's Friday, Earth Day. So there are climate events going on led by youth. I'm so excited to be irrelevant as these teenagers and 20-somethings are getting this done and leading the way. So I have to have hope that we're going to pass the right policies. And, I know people are doing what they can and doing individual actions to make a difference, but we need to set up policies so that the default action that people can take is the sustainable one instead of the action that takes a lot of effort. So that's the goal. That's where we want to get. And I got to be hopeful. I've seen us do some big things, but definitely anxious about our ability to meet that deadline.
Well, Jen Walling, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want you to promise to let us know when there's something that's important you want to talk about. And I'm going to give you a little short window here to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in fighting for justice in the environmental arena.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, gosh, about myself. I think that, this issue and environmental work to me really is about justice. It's about moving the needle. It's about altering the relations of power to make sure that people are the ones making these decisions. I've lived in Illinois my whole life, and just have always been excited by different efforts to make sure that the people are organizing to get solutions, especially those people who are most impacted. So in college, I worked on a clean energy fee at the University of Illinois. I've got a law degree from there too, but I just felt lobbying and policy is what's really going to make a difference. So I definitely spent a lot of time mentoring and trying to get young people more involved in activism and lobbying. I think some people think lobbying is a dirty word, and it is dirty, but I think that there's a substantial difference that we can make, bringing lots of diverse people into this field. So it's really exciting work. And I'm loving what I'm doing, even when it's frustrating and tiring.
Jen Walling, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to be paying a lot of attention to the Illinois Environmental Council and the good work you do. And all you out there who are listening or watching live from the Heartland, stay tuned. We're going to come back with a couple of filmmakers talking about their new film, Where Are You, Jay Bennett? And it's a story of a musical genius who left us way too soon. And to get to that segment, we're going to play a song by Jay Bennett called Beer. So get ready. This will be your favorite beer drinking song if you're a beer drinker. I'm more of a tequila guy. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland.
That first beer, that second beer, the third beer is the best. I love beer more than the rest.
Hey, we're back with more Live from the Heartland. This is a show for the week of April 9th in the year 2022, and we were listening to Jay Bennett's tune called Beer. That's a tune that I think a lot of you beer drinkers could be listening to when you're drinking that beer. And there's a new film out about this fellow, Jay Bennett. It's called Where Are You, Jay Bennett? It's a story of a musical genius who left us way too soon. And the filmmakers are here with us for the Live from the Heartland show. Gorman Betchard, I called you Bouchard earlier.
Actually, it is Bouchard. That is right.
It is, all right.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
Gorman Bouchard. Oh, you got better talk to Fred Uter. He knows what your last name is, how it's pronounced. Well, good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for coming on the show. One of you tell our listeners who vary in ages and musical interests who Wilco is and then who Jay Bennett is.
Well, Wilco is honestly probably the best known alt country band in the world. They sort of helped not necessarily invent the genre, because that probably goes more to Sun Volt and bands way before that. But I think Wilco made it popular. And Jay Bennett was a member of the band for their three most popular albums, being their Summer Teeth and Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. And if you ask any Wilco fan what their favorite album is, 9 times out of 10, someone is going to say Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. And Jay Bennett was really like a sonic architect and co-writer on these albums. So he's very much responsible. But after that third album with them, he was thrown out of the band. Wilco goes on to fame and fortune. Bennett goes on to die from a leaky fentanyl patch because he couldn't afford hip replacement surgery. So we felt that his story just really needed to be told because there was another Wilco documentary, and he was sort of in that film blamed. His behavior was sort of blamed for why he was thrown out of the band, and we never felt that it was completely fair to what was really going on at the time.
One of you tell me what that other documentary is about Wilco, because I knew they're referencing another band, another film, but I didn't ever quite get it.
I'm trying to break your heart. It was done about what, 15 years ago, man?
It came out in 2002.
Yeah, it was a big deal when it came out because Wilco was sort of at an apex with losing the recording contract and firing a member, and everything just sort of turned out really well for them. So it's like a seminal documentary in our world.
So Jay Bennett was quite the musical genius. I mean, he the movie opens with a lot of pictures of him playing baseball as a kid, has his mom and his brother talking a lot. And I got to say, I really didn't know about him. I've never been listening to a lot of Wilco, although it seems like more and more I hear them. But I really want to follow up on Jay Bennett, because what I heard in your documentary of him playing, I really liked it.
Yeah, I think Jay's solo stuff, when you really start listening, it sort of got lost when it was released. But it really is wonderful. And when you think about his writing capabilities and Tweedy's writing capabilities, had they stayed together, this would have been a modern day Lennon and McCartney.
Why do you think they split up? What was the thing? I mean, was it a jealousy thing? Was it Bennett was sort of taking on too much of a role in a band that was started probably by Jeff Tweedy? You fill me in.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Yeah. And it was just a couple things, and it's really we delve into that in the film. But you're right. There was at some point there was drug abuse on both sides, and there was at some point, I don't know if the relationship became toxic, but I mean it was like, I don't know. I just think about the Beatles movie, and that came out, and what that looked like, and the kind of music they created was incredible. And I watched this, but there's a lot more in this movie about a director's influence coming in the movie, and just amping up things that might have been solved if maybe the movie wasn't made. But Garmer, I'd sure like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's two people that were just musical geniuses. It was almost like a little bit too much ego, both wanting a little too much control, both being way too good at what they did. And unlike some bands where those things can work out, Keith and Mick are a perfect example. In this band, it just didn't.
One of the things that did catch my attention in watching it last night was talking about Woody Guthrie and interviewing his daughter. Tell us a little bit about the role of Woody Guthrie and how Wilco and Jay Bennett tie into that.
Well, I think that grew out of the second album that Bennett worked on with the band, which was Mermaid Avenue, which was not was not just a Wilco album, because it was really Wilco and Billy Bragg. And
Right.
Bennett sort of played, because you had Billy Bragg and Jeff Tweedy, and two, very strong musical characters. And Jay, in that respect, according to Nora Guthrie, really was sort of the middleman, who sort of, the glue that kept everything together and allowed everyone to work together. But I can see Jay being very difficult to work with, but I could also see him being the kind of like peacekeeper.
Also in the movie, I noticed, let me see if I can remember, Anna Furman. And Anna Furman is someone who we were honored to have her play at the Heartland Cafe on a number of occasions. Tell us what you know about Anna Furman and her role in this film that you made.
Well, basically, it was that Jay produced one of her albums, and she was at that time. Jay was going, it was a pretty rough period for Jay. So, but that's why we wanted to get that time period and sort of her talk about what was going on then. So.
Is she still making music?
I think she moved to Spain or Portugal. So she's not here. She said that's where
she was from, Racine or someplace.
Yeah, well, I think she said that's where people should be living. Last conversation I had with her.
So Jay Bennett passed in 2002. Is that when it was?
No, 2009.
2009.
Yeah, he was kicked out of the band in 2001, and Yankee Hotel came out in 2002.
So you guys are going to premiere this movie soon, right?
Yeah, well, it's had its actual technical premiere, but it's going to be available to the public on April 19th everywhere. There's a beautiful Blu-ray DVD combo with 5 hours of extras that's coming out on the 19th. But then on Record Store Day, one of the cool things we have is we actually were able to re-release his final 2 albums on vinyl for the first time with a copy of the DVD. So on Record Store Day, you can get this gorgeous gatefold package of 2 vinyl records and the DVD.
What's going on?
There's going to be 2 showings too, Michael. There's going to be showing on the 19th at the Blue Island Beer Company, which is in Blue Island, obviously. And we're going to have Edward Birch play, who was Jay's partner in an album, and he's going to do some Jay songs. And then we're also going to do the same premiere down in Danville, Illinois, at the Fisher's Theater, and the same thing with Edward Birch playing music too.
So, okay, those are 2 events, and the one closest to me would be Tuesday, April 19th, 7 p.m. at the Blue Island Beer Company in Blue Island, Illinois.
That's right.
Okay, so let me ask the 2 of you. You're both filmmakers. Do you always work together, or do you work separately? And what are your current projects?
We're separately. It's an interesting story is I started shooting this movie and it became unwieldy. And then I watched Gorman's history of what he did with another film about the Replacements. And I said, and I just reached out to him and I said, hey, do you want to work on a film with me? And, Gorman basically put a lot of that together and got the stream where it was going. So, but I'm working on a documentary on Michael McDermott, big Chicago artist. We'll have a fine cut probably at the end of this month. And I'm also doing a sort of expanded series on soul music, Chicago soul music. And that might take a bit longer, probably interviewed 50 soul artists for that. So, but Gorman is more prolific than me. So
yeah, and the funny thing was I said yes to Fred on this. My wife and I have seen Wilco 71 times now. So we're marginal fans. Not the bands we've seen the most, or those are other bands, but no, we do love the band. But right now, I have another film that's having its world premiere the week after, April 27th, down in Nashville, or actually in Franklin, Tennessee, at the Old Franklin Theater, which is called Old Friends, a Documentary, and it's the history of the Old Friends Senior Dog Sanctuary. Also, we've got 4 movies in various stages of development. No other music docs yet. I'm going to be looking for my 7th music subject soon.
Well, I already told Fred this. You weren't here yet. If you need an old guy who has a SAG card, I'm ready at your beck and call.
Okay.
Tell us one more time, anything people need to know about where they can get this film. Where are you, Jay Bennett? And just tell us where to get it. So that
Yeah, I mean,
go look.
The best place is you can honestly buy the DVD Blu-ray right on Amazon. You can find it. You'll be finding it streaming probably on the 19th of this month at least a dozen different places. I think if you just put it into your Google search, it'll bring it up. And then the record store day, which will be at most independent record shops on Saturday the 23rd.
I'm so glad to meet the two of you, Fred and Gorman. I'll see you. I think we probably run into each other crossing paths like at the Heartland Cafe, but
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you both again real soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks,
Okay.
Michael.
We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland. I got to say that I didn't know about Jay Bennett before, we had these directors and producers of this movie on the show, but I listened to some of his music and I really like it. So check it out, and you've heard or seen the trailer now. You can find more of it online. I got a real quick sports report. The Bulls are in the playoffs. The Sox are playing in Detroit today, Friday. That's their opening day. The Cubs won their opener on Thursday, and they are going to play again today. And I'm heading off to go to that game. And I want to say that I watched Tiger Woods on ESPN last night, coming in 1 under par. This is a guy who was in a serious accident, and as much as I detested golf in my life, having caddied a little bit and not liking the people I carried the bags for, I got to say that Tiger Woods has drawn me and many others to the game of golf, and his accident and recovery are inspirational, particularly as one gets older and has old injuries acting up and still gets new injuries. So thank you, Tiger Woods, and good luck in the rest of the tournament. We're going to go out today once again with Pastor Barrett and the Youth for Christ Choir. And we look forward to you coming on and listening to us again next week. I've got my good friend, labor organizer Bob Lawson coming on. We're going to have a Michael Frank, who produces not only musicians, but documentaries. He's got a documentary film called 6 Generations of the Blues from Mississippi to Chicago. And then Carlos Cumpien is going to come on with his new book called Human Cicada. So thank you to all the people who make this show possible. That would include Emilio Davis, Lynn Orman Weiss, Gwen Brown, Luis Mejia, Katy Hogan, Tom Clark, and Anthony Porter. You can get us you can get us on air and on the internet, streaming on Saturday mornings. You can also get us on CAN TV, and you can go to Spotify and Google Podcast, as well as anytime, and it's visual or audio at youtube.com/Heartland Media. We encourage you all to do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people. Over and out. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.